Hi, my name is Scott Plunkett. I'm a faculty member in the psychology department at California State University Northridge. And today I'm going to give a very brief presentation on producing an effective curriculum vita. The purpose of the CV or curriculum vita is to introduce you and/or get an interview for either a job or a graduate program. We must be very conscientious about the content that we put in our CV, because a lot of times people put way too much information and add a lot of fluff in there. And what we need to recognize that every word or every phrase that we put on our CV, it competes with all the other words or phrases. And so we don't want to distract people from the important stuff that's going to help us get that interview. And also, we need to make sure that we use a very professional appearance and a format that helps guide the reader to the information that they're looking for. Quite frequently, people will put columns in there or put other types of distractors in the format. And so just be aware of how that impacts the reader's ability to find information. And then next, we need to customize the CV to every position or graduate program that we apply to. For many people, the resume and the CV are actually going to be the same, because the resume and the CV both have education, experience, activities, skills, and honors. Where the real difference comes between the two, at least in the United States, is that the CV is going to focus on our scholarly contribution, sometimes just referred to as scholarship. And what we mean by that is peer-reviewed. So for example, if I have a grant or a publication or conference presentation, I have had that submitted to people in my same discipline who review that information and determine whether it's valuable enough to either fund in a grant or to publish or to present. With that said, when we do list our scholarship on our CV, we should use one bibliographic format. So for example, what I've done here on this page is listed everything in APA format, which would be for us in psychology. But maybe in the medical field, they use the AMA format, or maybe the ASA or the MLA format. Whichever format you use, just make sure you use the exact same format for all of your scholarly contributions. Now, if we take a look here on this page, we can see we have grants listed, we have peer-reviewed journal articles that could also be book chapters or books. And then another thing that's quite frequently listed are manuscripts in review or revision. Now, if we list that section, what we want to do is give the date when we actually submitted that manuscript, and if we submitted it and it was returned to us to revise and resubmit, then we should denote that also. Now, oftentimes people will suggest that you list manuscripts in preparation, and I think that's fine if you do that, as long as when you do it, you actually make sure that you have a solid draft that you could send out if somebody asked. Because if you just list a whole bunch of things that you're thinking about doing or planning on doing, then it could actually send the message that you never get anything done. So only list those things where you have a solid draft, and then give an accurate estimate of when you plan on submitting and also where you plan on submitting it, because that makes it seem more real to the reader. When it comes to presentations, make sure that you separate conference presentations from campus presentations. When people mix those together, it looks like they're just trying to exaggerate their number of conference presentations, and it sends a message that they don't understand that those are at two completely different levels. So make sure you keep those separate from each other. And again, use the same bibliographic style, such as APA or MLA. When it comes to experience, you may want to group your experience into subcategories. Maybe you want to have research, teaching, and industry-specific experience. And I think that's good when you do it, as long as you have enough information to be able to do that. Be sure and not exaggerate any of the stuff that you do within each of those experiences, because if you do exaggerate, it's going to be pretty obvious when you go in for an interview, and that's going to put you in a very uncomfortable position. Next, when you are listing your bullets underneath each experience, make sure you focus on your marketable skills. Like, for example, if you say you attended weekly research meetings, that's not that marketable. Anybody can do that. But if you said you trained research assistants in designing surveys on Qualtrics or running a particular type of analysis, that's very marketable. And related to that is you need to be very specific. Don't state broad things like ran statistical analysis or coded data or ran participants. Those don't really mean a whole lot because they're not giving us enough information to understand exactly what you did. So if you ran analyses, say, I ran logistic regressions, MANOVAs, and path analysis. If you coded data, say, I coded focus group data using both focus coding and open coding or thematic coding. So be specific so that you're more marketable. I know that was just a very brief introduction to the CV. There's certainly a lot more information on my webpage. If you want to go to csun.edu/plunk/resources. And I really wish you all the best in your either job search or graduate school search.